I never planned on noticing her. She was just the neighbor who sometimes waved when we happened to pull into the parking lot at the same time. Mid-40s, I guessed. Always in a faded denim jacket, always carrying a grocery bag that looked too heavy for one hand. I didn't think much of it, until she started showing up at the same cafe I went to. It wasn't the kind of place people chose on purpose. The floor tiles cracked near the counter, the clock above the doorway ticked a second too slow. Students hunched over laptops, retirees nurse-dripped coffee for hours. For me, it was where I could sit without anyone asking questions. The first time she stepped in, she paused like she wasn't sure she belonged there. Then she ordered black coffee, no sugar, no cream, and sat by the window. Same table every time after that. I told myself I didn't care, but I caught myself watching. The way she set her thermos beside the cup, like she never trusted the cafe's coffee to stay hot enough. The way she folded napkins, over and over, until they looked like little paper spines. One morning, I was standing in line behind her. She glanced back when the barista misheard her order. "It's just black," she said. Her voice was calm, like she'd repeated it 100 times before. "Guess he's used to people making it complicated," I muttered before I could stop myself. She tilted her head, half smiling. "You don't look like a caramel drizzle type either." That should have been the end of it. Small talk, nothing more. But when I picked up my coffee, she was still at the counter, waiting for hers. She looked at me, like she was deciding something, then said, "You always sit in the back." "Why?" I blinked. "Habit, I guess." Her coffee arrived. She didn't wait for me to answer properly. She just nodded and walked to her table by the window. I should have left it there. Instead, I sat at the table across from her instead of my usual spot. Close enough that I could hear the scrape of her spoon against the cup, but not so close it felt like I was intruding. It went on like that for weeks. Not every day, but enough to notice patterns. She'd glance at me once when she walked in, then pretend she hadn't. I'd look at my phone longer than necessary, typing half messages to no one. One evening, I stayed until the cafe closed. She was still there, reading something she never turned the page of. When the lights flicked, she closed the book and said quietly, "They don't like when people linger." "Guess I lost track of time," I said. Her eyes lingered on me just a second too long. "That's rare." We walked out at the same time. The night air felt heavier than it should. She carried her thermos, empty now, swinging lightly from her hand. I almost said something, about the book, about her thermos, about why she chose the same seat every time. But she looked tired in a way that wasn't about sleep. So I said nothing. The next morning, I walked into the cafe, expecting the same empty window seat. But there was something on my table in the back instead. A folded napkin, balanced carefully on the rim of my cup. On it, in small handwriting, "Try the window. Better light." I sat down slowly, staring at the note. My phone buzzed in my pocket, an unsaved number, one message. "If you want company, don't wait in the back." And just like that, coffee didn't feel quiet anymore. I took the window seat the next morning. Felt strange at first, like I was stealing her spot. The sunlight fell across the table, catching the scratches in the wood. She walked in 20 minutes later, saw me there, and didn't say anything. Just raised an eyebrow as if to ask, "You listened?" She sat across from me without asking. I was halfway through my coffee, suddenly aware of how loud every sip sounded. "You usually bring your own thermos," I said. "Forgot it," she answered, stirring the cup. The spoon tapped against porcelain, steady. "Besides, it's not always bad here." I wanted to ask about the note. About her number. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "You must like this table for a reason." She looked past me, through the window. "My ex hated sitting with his back to the street. Said it made him nervous. I got used to sitting by the glass." A pause, then a quick laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Funny what sticks after people leave." I nodded, not sure what to say. My chest felt heavy, like I'd been handed something fragile I didn't know how to hold. I don't usually tell strangers things like that, she added softer. Guess I'm not a stranger anymore. That earned me a glance, brief but sharp. She didn't answer. The next time we saw each other was outside, in the parking lot. She was struggling with a bag of soil, trying to lift it from the trunk of her car. I walked over before I thought it through. Let me, I said, grabbing the edge. She hesitated but let go. Careful, it's heavier than it looks. I set it down by her door. My hands were dirty, but I didn't wipe them. She leaned on the railing, arms folded. You live alone? I asked. She studied me for a second too long. Yes. My son's in college. Out east. Something in my stomach shifted. I wanted to ask how old he was, but the question stuck in my throat. She must have noticed. Don't worry, he's older than you. Barely. I laughed, though it felt nervous. She smiled then, small and tired but real. Inside her apartment, the air smelled faintly of chamomile tea and lemon polish. She filled the kettle and waved me toward a chair without asking if I wanted to stay. I sat watching her move. Calm, deliberate. We didn't talk much. The silence wasn't awkward, just thick. She set down 2 mugs, sliding one toward me. My fingers brushed hers as I took it. Just an accident. But she didn't pull back right away. The touch lasted a second too long, then she withdrew, wrapping both hands around her own cup like she needed the heat. I stared at the rising steam. My heart felt louder than it should. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I started timing my mornings to hers. Not on purpose. At least, that's what I told myself. But I knew roughly when she'd arrive, how she'd pause by the door before ordering. One day, she didn't show. The window seat stayed empty, and I sat there anyway, pretending not to notice the silence pressing in. By the time I left, I typed out 3 half messages to her number. Deleted all of them. 2 days later, she finally came. Same denim jacket, but different somehow, eyes tired, hair unbrushed. She sat down without looking at me. You disappeared, I said before I could stop myself. She stirred her coffee. Didn't answer right away. Then, finally, work ran late. Life ran late. Happens. Her voice was even, but her hands gave her away. Tapping the spoon against the rim too quick. I wanted to ask what had really happened. Instead, I just sat there, waiting. Then the bell above the door rang, and someone else walked in. A guy in his 40s, sharp suit, confident. He spotted her instantly. Thought that was you, he said, coming over. Didn't know you still came here. She smiled politely, too polite. It's convenient. They talked, small talk, light, nothing important. But the way her shoulders straightened told me she was trying too hard. I sat there, invisible. When he finally left, she exhaled like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. Old friend? I asked. Something like that. She didn't explain. Didn't look at me either. The silence stretched. I picked at the sleeve of my hoodie, folded and refolded the napkin. She finally glanced over. You're quiet, she said. So are you. That earned a faint smile. Almost. Later that week, I saw her outside again. She was carrying groceries up the stairs, fumbling with her keys. I offered to help, but she shook her head. I've got it. Still, I followed her up. Inside, the bag split, an apple rolling across the floor. I bent to pick it up, and when I stood, we were too close. Her breath caught. Just for a second. I didn't move. Neither did she. The air between us felt sharp, dangerous. My hand still holding the apple, hers brushing against mine as she reached for the bag. I shouldn't. She started, then stopped. I wanted to ask, shouldn't what? But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just looked at her. Long enough that it felt like something was about to break. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She pulled back, stepped away, picked it up too quickly. I should deal with this. I set the apple down on the table. My throat dry. We didn't say goodbye. But when I left, she stood by the doorway longer than necessary, fingers gripping the frame, eyes following me down the stairs. A look that felt almost like, it was late when I saw her again. Not the cafe this time, outside, walking back from the store with a paper bag tucked against her chest. I offered to carry it, and she didn't argue, just let me take some of the weight. We walked side by side. The street was quiet, lamps buzzing faintly, shadows stretching long. Don't you have friends your own age? She asked suddenly. I looked over. Her eyes were on the pavement. Not really, I said. Not like this. She didn't answer. Just pressed her lips together, kept walking. At the bench near her building, she stopped. Set the bag down at her feet. Saturday. I joined her, a little too close, but she didn't move away. You shouldn't. She started, then shook her head. Whatever this is, I know, I said quickly. Too quickly. Silence again. The kind that makes your chest ache. She folded her hands in her lap, then unclasped them, then folded them again. You remind me of my son, she said finally. That one stung more than I expected. Do I? No. Not really. Just the age, I suppose. And that makes me feel. She stopped. Exhaled. It makes me feel like I should know better. I stared at the streetlight, the way the bugs circled it endlessly. You probably do. That almost made her laugh. Almost. I shouldn't sit here with you, she said, but her voice was softer now. I shouldn't let you carry my groceries. I shouldn't let you look at me the way you do. My throat tightened. How do I look at you? She turned then, finally meeting my eyes. The kind of look that doesn't leave room for lies. Like you don't see the years between us. I swallowed hard. My hand brushed the wooden bench, just a fraction closer to hers. Not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth. Maybe I don't, I said. Quiet. Almost to myself. Her breath caught. Not loud, but there. We stayed like that, too close, too still. The paper bag at her feet shifted when the wind picked up. An apple rolled out, bumping against my shoe. Neither of us reached for it. Her hand moved, just slightly, like she might bridge the space. Then she pulled back, curling her fingers into her palm. I can't, she whispered. I leaned forward before I knew I was doing it, words spilling out half-formed. I don't care if you can't. I stopped. Her eyes widened, caught between fear and something else. The silence stretched again. A wire pulled tight. Finally, she asked, almost inaudible. What is it you really want from me? And I didn't have an answer. Not yet. The next morning, she wasn't at the cafe. Neither was I. I stayed in bed longer than usual, staring at the ceiling, scrolling through old texts I never sent. By noon, I gave up pretending I didn't care and walked to the window seat anyway. Empty. I kept going for 3 days. Nothing. No folded napkin, no denim jacket, no quiet glance. Just empty chairs and the hum of the refrigerator behind the counter. On the 4th day, I saw her. Not inside the cafe, outside by her car carrying a suitcase. I almost called out. Instead, I froze on the sidewalk, watching her wrestle the bag into the trunk. She looked smaller somehow, shoulders bent, hair tied back loosely like she hadn't bothered with mirrors. Finally, I forced myself to walk over. Going somewhere? She startled, then smiled. Too quick, too practiced. Just a few days. Visiting family? Her eyes didn't meet mine. You could have said something, I muttered, more bitter than I meant. She shut the trunk with more force than necessary. I don't owe anyone my itinerary. That one stung. I nodded, shoved my hands in my pockets. I'm sorry, she added, softer. I need space. The words sat heavy between us. I wanted to ask space from what? From me? From herself? From the way she looked at me on that bench? But I didn't. She drove off, and the silence she left behind felt louder than anything. She was gone a week. Maybe more. I stopped keeping count. My routine thinned out without her, coffee tasted flat, nights felt longer. I tried distracting myself, but every quiet moment pulled me back to her. Then one evening, I walked past her apartment. Lights on, curtains half drawn. She was inside, sitting at the table, staring at her phone. Her face lit by the screen, unreadable. I almost knocked. My hand hovered over the railing, fingers itching. But I didn't. Later that night, my phone buzzed. An unsaved number again, hers. Just one line. "Don't wait for me." I stared at it until the words blurred. Typed out 3 replies. Deleted them all. The next morning, her seat at the cafe was still empty. Mine too. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. Like she was still mid-breath, and I was still waiting for the rest of it. I didn't expect to see her again. But one night, weeks later, I found her on the bench outside our building. No suitcase this time. Just her, wrapped in that denim jacket, hands shoved deep in the pockets. I slowed when I saw her, unsure if I should keep walking. She looked up, caught my hesitation, and patted the space beside her. Small, almost reluctant. I sat. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the ground was dry. "You ignored my message," she said. "I read it," I answered. "That's not the same." We fell quiet. The buzz of the street lamp above us filled the gap. I fiddled with my sleeve, pulling at a loose thread until it snapped. She noticed, because her eyes softened just a little. "You shouldn't wait for me," she said, repeating the line from her text. "Too late for that." She turned toward me then, really looking. Something in her face cracked. Not broken, just unguarded. "I don't know what you want from me," she said, voice low. "And I don't know what I want from you. Some days it feels wrong, other days it feels like the only thing keeping me from disappearing." I swallowed hard. My chest tightened. Maybe I don't want anything. Maybe I just like knowing someone notices if I'm there or not. She let that sink in. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. Instead, she whispered, "It scares me. The way you look at me. Like it doesn't matter that I'm older. Like it doesn't even register for you." "It doesn't," I said quietly. "Not when I'm here. Not when it's just us." Her eyes closed briefly, like she was bracing for something. "Do you know what people would say?" "I'm not asking people," I said. My voice surprised me, steady, firmer than I felt. "I'm asking you." That broke the silence in a way I couldn't take back. She turned toward me, searching my face for something, an answer, maybe, or permission to believe me. Her hand rested on the bench between us, not reaching, but close. My fingers inched toward hers without thinking. When they touched, she didn't pull away this time. We sat there, our hands barely joined, more air than skin between us. But it was enough. Enough to feel the weight of everything we hadn't said pressing down, and the relief of letting at least some of it out. She exhaled, shaky, then finally whispered, "Okay." Just that. Nothing else. And somehow, it was everything. It didn't change overnight. Nothing ever does. But slowly, routines shifted. She still came to the cafe, only now she didn't wait for me to move first. Some mornings she'd already be at the window seat when I arrived, stirring her black coffee with that steady rhythm. Other mornings, I'd be there first, setting an extra napkin folded neatly at the edge of her cup. It became ordinary in the best way. Not loud, not sudden, just two people learning to share silence. Her phone still buzzed sometimes. Work, family, a son who called less than he should. She never explained much, and I didn't push. What she gave me was enough, the half smiles, the way her shoulders relaxed when I sat down, the soft laugh when she caught me watching her fold napkins the same way she always had. Evenings were different too. Sometimes I carried her groceries, sometimes we sat on the bench by the building, watching the streetlight flicker. She'd lean back, close her eyes, and let the cool air move around us. No confessions, no grand speeches. Just presence. One night I asked, "Still scared?" Her eyes stayed closed, but her lips curved. "Every day." "Me too." That was enough. Weeks passed. Life didn't stop throwing the usual punches. Late bills, sleepless nights, small arguments over nothing. But I stopped feeling invisible. She stopped feeling alone. Somehow, that was the quiet victory either of us expected. I still caught myself typing out messages I never sent. But they weren't desperate anymore. More like placeholders. Words waiting for the right time. We never talked about labels. Not once. Maybe we never will. What mattered was the way she'd slide a cup of chamomile tea across the table toward me, unasked. Or the way she'd nudge her thermos toward my hand on cold mornings, letting me steal some warmth without saying a word. The little things carried more weight than anything bigger could. The last time we sat at that cafe window, the clock above the door clicked over to 8:47 a.m. She noticed it too. I saw the glance, the faint smile. Neither of us said it out loud, but we both knew what it meant. Another morning we'd met each other here, another quiet sentence life finally decided to finish. I don't know if this will last forever. Maybe that's not the point. Maybe it's enough that, for now, someone sees me. Someone waits for me. And I wait for her. When we left, she touched my arm lightly, almost absent-minded. But I caught it, and she saw that I did. A small thing, really? But it felt like everything we'd been building toward.